Welcome back to the Life After College Athletics podcast. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest for today, Chase Mangini. Chase is a former football player from Tufts University, where he studied philosophy and had a personal experience that sparked his passion for breathwork. Through that personal experience, he transformed his own life with breathwork, meditation, and mindfulness, and he now quite literally breathes new life into others and increases everyday performance. We're excited to dive into the story, and if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick 2-minute drill on who you are, where you're from, what
Yeah,
you do now would be
100%.
great.
You nailed it pretty good, but I'm Chase Mangini. I live out in San Diego, California right now. Played football at Tufts University out in Boston for 4 years. Played sports my whole life growing up before that. I studied philosophy as my major. I did finance entrepreneurship as my minors. Kind of always hustled, always grinded, make a buck for myself. Always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. Didn't really know where that was going to take me. So I found breathwork when I was in high school, meditation, mindfulness, and latched onto it. And I'm sure we'll get into that side of things. And now I do one-on-one coaching with people through breathwork and mental strength, through small groups with sports teams and businesses. And yeah, just getting it rocking and rolling all around the country.
One of the first questions we wanted to ask you was, you kind of alluded to it, but how did you discover the importance of breath work? What kind of sparked that interest?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a senior in high school out here in San Diego at a school called La Jolla Country Day School. I grew up going there my whole life. I knew everybody there. It was like a small, super tight knit family, which was awesome. And my senior year, got done with football season and was, training for lacrosse, played high school lacrosse, and ended up tearing my ACL, both my menisci, my senior year playing lacrosse. And, going
Mm.
through an injury like that, being an athlete my whole entire life. You have everything stripped, in a very non-cliche way. You're not able to walk, you're not able to exercise, you're not able to work out. I'm in a straight leg brace, up in bed, quite literally having my dad showering me. It kind of makes you strip your ego away. And, I started on a pretty shitty mental rabbit hole there. I was really pissed off at the world, kind of the woe is me mindset, very negative, not my typical self. And for one reason or another, I started seeing this crazy guy named Wim Hof who would jump into frozen lakes and do some really intense breathing pop up on my YouTube and on my socials. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? What's going on with him? And, started really researching the benefits of everything of it all. And I was like, I got nothing to lose. I can't do anything else anyway. I might as well flip off the TV for, 30 minutes in the morning and try this stuff out. And quite literally helped change my whole mental life, my physical life after diving into breath work, really helped me through my recovery process. I think it helps speed things up from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, just open my eyes to all different types of modalities in terms of, self-development, personal growth. And it's just completely changed my mindset. And, that's what I'm trying to help people do now with it.
When was a moment that sparked where you knew, like, okay, this is something that I actually benefit from? How many times did you try a different breathwork method or try someone else's method before you found out, okay, maybe this is worth my time and worth something to look
Yeah, no,
into?
I love that because I tinkered with meditation a little bit. My parents had done a little bit of it. I see them doing their yoga and meditation growing up and through high school, and I'm not doing that. Well, what is all that, And so I tried meditation a little bit, but being a young, naive kid, you don't want to do anything your parents tell you, right? We never want to try new things. And I was like, meditation's cool. I feel pretty calm after, obviously there's a science behind it. And, it wasn't until about a month in, I remember this so vividly. I was laying in my bed and I was doing the Wim Hof stuff and just really breathing into it, really diving in. And dude, I felt like I just like blasted off into a whole nother realm of life somehow, right? It's like I'm tingling, I'm vibrating, I'm like the most present I've ever felt. I can feel all my emotions coming up, kind of like going on a like, not woo-woo type journey, but like a journey, right? I'm, like, having shit come up, and I can feel my body, and I'm like, "What's going on?" I feel really calm, but I'm also kinda, like, exploring all different thoughts and emotions that are coming up, and it was after coming out of that, I felt very emotional, I felt very attached to myself, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, there's some real power to this stuff." And it's like everything, it's been, like, 5 years now of me doing it consistently, and, every day, every month, every year, it just gets better and better, and you just learn new things every time, which I think is so cool.
No, I couldn't agree more. I don't personally do it a lot, and I think after this conversation, I'll probably be incentivized too after hearing some of the benefits from it. But when I was in college at the University of Utah, one of our strength and conditioning coaches did kind of make that an emphasis, especially we'd have one recovery day during season where we do
Mhm.
like hard yoga. It wasn't yoga, 'cause it was, I swear, it was like holding poses for like 4 minutes, but you do breath work at the end, and you honestly kinda like feel like you're in like a daydream. Like your mind kinda just like wanders off, but in a good way. Like you can start to feel all of your body parts, which is something that never thought I would experience, but I couldn't
Yeah,
agree more.
My involvement with that is kinda similar to Rylan. I actually took, like, a Pilates class in high school, and that was, like, right before football practice, and every time that we would have Pilates class, we'd end it with, like, the Shavasana for, like, 15 minutes, and at first, I, like, took the class and I was excited for it because I'm like, "Oh, I get to take a nap right before football practice." You could probably explain this way better than us because obviously you're way more into it, but you just, like, lay there and eventually, like, you feel like your body is weightless and you feel like it truly is just like healing your body, and when you wake up from it, you're super light and you're, like, ready to go, and it feels pretty cool.
no, yeah, it's cool you guys have had your own experiences with it because it's a very, feel-based, experience practice, so, like you said, you just dive into it and you feel like the most present you ever have in your whole life because all we have is our breath, right? It's like, you can have all this shit happen to you, you can have an event, girlfriend dumps you, job's going shitty, parents are whatever, and it's like the only thing you ever really have is, like, your breath to come back to, right? And it's like, that's the one thing that we can always use to ground us on a very, easy level by just breathing in and out. And now you go into these very deep intentional practices that really put you there and you're like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, so you have a background in philosophy, that's what you studied in college. I think the combo of philosophy with entrepreneurship and finance is pretty unique. What drew you to major in philosophy, and has that had any effect on what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's pretty funny actually. I started as an econ major, going into Tufts as a freshman. All the older guys are like, no, you do econ as a major and you do finance as a minor, and that's like the closest thing you're gonna get to business, right? Because everybody wants to have kind of that all-encompassing business degree. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do econ. This is cool, whatever. Start diving into it. I'm like, I hate numbers. Like this stuff is hard. It's not just like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like way more than that, obviously. And so we got sent home for COVID my freshman year of March. So I got home. I did the first semester online. And then super funny story actually. So my mom to this day still does not know that I took the whole second semester off and I didn't do classes. I unenrolled from Tufts and I stayed home because we had no football, no sports or anything. And I was like, I'm not doing online classes. Like this is such BS. I'm not learning anything. Econ sucks, all this stuff. So I just worked. I worked that whole semester. I was doing labor jobs for people. I was painting houses. I was cutting grass. I was bar backing at a restaurant. Just figuring out like what the working world is all about. We've never done that our whole life. It was kind of through that of taking that semester off. I realized that like I hate econ, and why am I going to study something that I hate and try to push a degree and something I'm probably not going to use that I see the merit in it's very beneficial, but I'm just not gonna use. I was like, "Okay, what can I do?" And I've always loved philosophy. I've always loved books and kinda like older texts and just like how people think and why people do what they do. And I was just on the Tufts website one day and I was like, "Yeah, I'll just switch my major." And I just didn't look back and I stuck with it and it was super cool.
Did you know anything about breath work while you were studying philosophy, or is there any sort of introduction before you maybe learned about it from an online source or Instagram and web and
Yeah,
TikTok
so I
reels?
never learned about the stuff at Tufts, with like the breath work and everything. Obviously, you read some, stoicism and that kind of stuff where it talks a bit about meditation and that kind of world. The breathwork stuff came, fully from having it pop up in high school and then starting to work with my mentor out here who was doing breath work with people. And I dove in with him every week doing sessions. And then ended up just going through a couple different online courses and certifications to really, learn the science behind it, learn how I can teach people it and facilitate people. So there was like a bit of crossover. And I knew that, how if I could learn how people think and why people do what they do and kind of the morality behind, history and evolution and coming into present day philosophy, it helps, coach people through the mental side of things, right? Whatever they're going through, just kind of, simplifying everything and helping people come back. Cause that's what a lot of this work is, right? It's helping everybody kind of flush out the noise, not living in the past and not worrying about the future and really just coming back and living present. Cause that's when we're at our best. And philosophy taught me a lot about that, which is cool.
So you have multiple clients coming to your business. I assume a decent amount of them, correct me if I'm wrong, are people who are feeling stressed, feeling anxious, and want to like block out things like you're saying. What happens if they go through your program and they kind of get to a spot in their life where they don't feel the stress and anxiety? How does it look to continue using breath work and meditation outside of that? Is it more of like a maintenance, or is it more of now we move into different levels and we go deeper into your spirituality?
It's a really interesting question. Everybody has their own path with this type of work and their own journey. And honestly, I've had a couple clients that, do 8 weeks with me and they're like, I just want to keep going. Right. So then they do another 8 or they do another 4. And, some get to the end of 8 and they don't really need that hand holding. Right. It's kind of like a personal trainer. It's like you start so that you have that accountability. You really know what you're doing. You really hone in on it. And then after that, it's kind of maintenance. So whether I give people a library that they can do of certain breath works, or just checking in with them here and there and making sure I'm still there for them, but maybe we don't need to meet, twice a week on Zoom. I can just give them the things that they need to do, and they can implement that every morning. But it's cool the difference you can see between working with someone, just from my own personal experience, doing it on my own, and then you go and you have somebody facilitating you through it. You just don't have to think, right? You can just quite literally lay there and just be guided, and it just opens up, your mind to a lot more possibilities for that.
Especially you as a coach, you probably love when you see people kind of be autonomous after your 8 or 12-week program, because that's kind of your whole goal is like you want to bring them out of it and give them the tools to empower themselves. It's probably good both ways to see them, if they want to continue with you, then they're getting value out of the program. But if they leave, then it's like, dang, I've done my job.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I'd love to hear, and I think people listening would love to hear, how do you connect your own kind of personal experience to others through breath work? And I don't mean like connect spiritually. I mean, maybe it happens that way, but I mean more so like, do you walk them through examples of how they can use breath work to minimize some of that stress and maximize mental performance? And I think a lot of people probably think, oh, like I'm not a professional athlete. Maybe I don't need breath work, or I'm not performing at a peak where I don't need that. But I think it still can help with your everyday 9 to 5 job, and love to hear how you demonstrate that and use that to
Absolutely,
help
man.
people.
Yeah. There's so many cool benefits to this stuff. Just on a simple level, there's the greatest study done on it was just, between longevity and lung size and capacity. And they found people that lived the longest had the strongest lung size, right? And the biggest lung size and lung capacity. And, just spending 5 minutes every morning of the breath work to really just improve your lung capacity and how you're able to breathe more efficiently and use all that oxygen you're bringing in is effectively expanding your lifespan. And it's free. Everybody can sit down, take some deep breaths, really learn how to control your breath and come back to the present moment. And it's helping you live longer. And then, working with clients on the stress side of things, obviously when we do our one-on-ones, it's very deep and it's very intentional. And, before we start our work, I make sure, we lay out people's goals, both mentally and physically. I really want to know where they're at in their life so that I'm using the breath work as a, form of therapy in a way, but also as a way to really tap into their mindset and their subconscious so that as we're working through stuff, they're able to overcome the mental and emotional hurdles that they're putting on themselves, right? It's like you're only as good on the outside as you are on the inside. And unfortunately, I had to go through it. We don't put enough emphasis on making sure that our minds are okay and we're able to regulate our thoughts and our emotions. And a lot of the times, that's just what's holding us back, right? It's like you look into anxiety, for example. I used to go through bad anxiety at nights. I remember coming home from high school, I'd be at the kitchen table. I'm like, not really able to finish my dinner, which was so weird. And I'll never forget it. And I was like, why can't I finish my freaking dinner? Like I'm always eating. I've always been a foodie. And it's like, because I was always so worried about the future. I was like, well, because I have to go study for 3 hours and I have to make sure I ace that test tomorrow because I never really got great grades and I don't want to get blown up by my parents because I got another C, you know what I mean? And it's like, but I also got to watch film because we have a game in 2 days and I got to make sure I'm good for that. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. And you start building up all this anxious energy in yourself and you're not using anything to just let it go and to work through it all. And once that bundles up to a certain point, your nervous system can't handle it. And you might start having panic attacks. I went through those, or you might fall into a bit of depression or, you know, just a lot of stress on your body and your mind. And, not to talk about any of these topics lightly because they're problems that everybody's facing in our society today. But using the breath work as a tool to both dive into the mental hurdles that are holding people back and having that anxious energy building up and that stressful energy, while also giving them really simple tools in their day-to-day lives when we don't work that, they can do in the morning, they can do at night, they can do midday before a big presentation in front of their, C-suite executives. So there's a bunch of different cool layers to this type of stuff. I hope that answers your question, but yeah, I think that's how I'm using it with different types of people.
Yeah, maybe switching to the business side of it. What does your clientele look like now? And then also, what are your goals in the next couple years? Where do you want to build the business to?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the clients right now are working only with men right now. It's a lot easier for me to connect with guys on a, mental and emotional level than women, not, for any other reason, just that I'm a guy, I'm a former athlete. You can connect with those types of people easier, but all guys, salesmen, guys in the marketing space, financial planners, and people in like the financial management side of the world. Essentially high performing people that live very stressful lives, a couple founders that run their own companies, and working with those types of guys now and building up the clientele to work with more of these types of people and just expand the awareness of this type of work so that, down the line, I'm able to do big weekend retreats with a bunch of awesome dudes that you're bringing together and everybody's, going through the breath work and their cold plunge and their sauna and everybody's just shooting the shit. And it's a way to bring guys together in a space that they're not used to being in, right? It's like, that's why what you guys are doing is so freaking awesome because in a lot of the times we don't have the space to come to and just vent or work through our stuff with other guys because you're in the office and dudes are like, oh, you don't need it, let's go grab another beer. You don't need to talk about whatever's going on at home and, all this different stuff. And it's like, there's nothing against that, but sometimes you just need to be in a healthier space to talk about this type of stuff with other dudes. So, I'd love to be at a space where, I'm the biggest breathwork guy in the country and in the world. I want to do huge weekend events, big wellness retreats, and just continuing to build the brand, build the community, bring as many just epic freaking humans that I can together and just, helping everyone through this work.
I think Jake and I both really resonate with that and love to hear it. It's the status quo, like even though we're only 24, 25, 26 years old, this is just the beginning and we got so much bigger to build. Like I love your mindset, like who's Wim Hof? Like I'm gonna be bigger than him. Like I think that's the right mindset. It's how we keep going and that's what made us perform as college athletes. That's what got us to there and we're not done yet. So I love to hear that. Would love to hear what kind of motivation you still have today and how you're using that. Like it's nice to be able to connect with like-minded people in similar situations. Cause like being in a new city on my own and Jake experienced this as well. Making new friends is difficult and I'm sure we all have experienced this and having friendships with like-minded people has been difficult because like you said, people in your office likely aren't from the same background and they would rather do different things than on the weekend than you would. So finding that group, but would love to hear how you've kept your
Yeah, no,
motivation.
it's cool that you guys can acknowledge that because I fully resonate with that. And that's one of my missions with this type of work, right? It's like being young dudes who really care about our own wellness and our own health. It's kind of taboo still, right? It's like, oh, you work out a lot, or it's like, oh, you don't need to go drink every single weekend. And it's like, that's fun. You need that. Like, you need the social interactions with your boys and going out and having a good time. But part of this stuff is like one of the best quotes I've ever heard in this type of work is that like you are most able to help the person that you used to be. And the person that I used to be was struggling to find like-minded guys in this space, right? It's like not needing to just follow the same societal norms that we go through where it's lower school, middle school, high school. Make sure you get good grades so you go to a good college, and then make sure you're getting really good grades so you have a good GPA so that you can go get that 9 to 5 job. And so you're working your way up the corporate ladder. And it's like, that was never me. And that is a mold that I want to break. And I want to really tell people that like, you can create whatever you want in this life. You can do whatever you want. Like you just got to put your head down and hit the freaking dirt every single day and have your values aligned towards what you want to go do. And if you can do that every single day and you know your mission and you know your values, you're going to get there because like you can't lose if you don't quit. And I think that's my biggest motivation. That's my biggest mindset right now is that like I used to think on way too small of time horizons. I'm like, I tried to start a clothing brand. I was doing odd jobs for people. I tried to do what else? Masks, like when we had COVID, like anything I'm like, this is gonna work, right? I tried some stupid shit to make some money. And I was like, this 6 months, easy, millionaire, right? And that's just not how life works. And I've really had to learn like, no, Chase, this is like a 5, 10, 15-year thing. Like you love this shit. You want to help the most people. You got to expand that time horizon and just put your head down every single day and don't freaking stop. And I think that's just what motivates me now. And yeah, just staying really true to who you are and aligned with your values is huge, I think.
I think that's super powerful because there's a point in your life when you come out of college, and this is maybe towards what our audience is really, like, it's tailored towards what our audience is, but for very high achievers who have come out of athletics and wanna do big things in the world, there's this place of, I just came from athletics like Rylan talked about, and I had a team there, and I had people around me, but then there's also, like, people that are 5 or 10 years ahead of me who have a big business, who are doing successful things, and I'm, like, in the middle. Like, I'm not with my old friends, I'm not with the old group, but I'm also not big enough to be, like, playing in the room with these big players, and so there's this period of, like, loneliness where you're grinding every day, like you're saying, and unless you have a true plan and true values that you can fall back onto, it's super hard to be consistent and to get to that next room. So I think it's what you just said. I'm not going to repeat it because you said it perfectly, but that's got to be your biggest motivation is your base principles and looking at the 5 and 10 year uh, game plan and just knowing that if I just don't quit, I'm not going to lose. So I love that.
Yeah, 100%. If I can add something to that really quick that I think is really important. One
Yeah.
of my big mentors is a guy named Devin LeVake on social media, and he just does incredible stuff. Came out of his inner circle group, learned a lot. And, one of the first things he dove into teaching us is your values, right? Identify 3 to 5 values in your life. And I took that and I like to use it as a bucket system for myself, right? So I have 5 buckets now. It's my faith in God, higher divine, the universe, whatever you believe in, my family, my growth, having fun, and giving back, right? Those are my 5 values. And if what I am doing on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, whatever, don't align with, the majority of these, I'm not going to do it. If there's a person that doesn't align with my values, selfishly, I'm not going to lean into that relationship because A, it doesn't serve me, but B, it doesn't serve my overall mission, right? And if I'm genuinely
Mhm.
trying to help as many people in my life as I can, hundreds of millions of people, right? Because that's what I want to do, I can't stray from that. And I can't fall out of balance with, okay, so maybe I go out on a Saturday night with all my boys and like that falls into, having fun, but then that takes away from my family because maybe I haven't hung out with them in a while and I should probably give them some time tonight. Definitely takes away from my growth because I know most likely if I go out, I'm gonna have a damn good time. I'm not gonna wake up at 5 or 6 like I normally do and go hit that workout as good as I would during the week. Right. And as a result, I'm not gonna be able to give back the next week as well as I would be if I didn't go out to my clients that I'm working with. So the value-based living for me is something that I learned a ton from Devin and just implementing that in my life has been absolutely huge. And kind of going back to Rylan's question, where my motivation comes from as well.
Being grounded in yourself is really important. I think you hit the nail on the head. Your values, and if you can define those values earlier on, you'll be better off because you create an identity. It's like we talk about on this podcast, when you leave college athletics into the professional working world, you maybe lose part of your identity, but you gain a new one. That doesn't have to be a new one that's atypical of the normal world, but it could be a new identity that promotes your growth and your personal wealth. You take on a new opportunity, you learn a new skill. That's a new part of your identity now. So like you said, I mean, you took that on head first with entrepreneurship. How has that been? What have been some of the difficulties in building a business?
You can only be better by learning from other people's mistakes, right? And for me, I think a couple of difficulties, challenges, I should say. One comes from just that loneliness sometimes that you feel when all your boys are out all weekend hanging out, having a good time, but you're in making sure your LinkedIn posts are ready for the next week. Your messages are going out. You've got all your clients ready to rock and roll the next week. And there can be a little bit of disconnect, and you might have to start, cutting people out that you used to hang out with all the time, or you don't feel as connected, even though that social interactions are very important. So I think there's definitely a loneliness that comes with entrepreneurship, but I think any great entrepreneur, any successful person will tell you that, like, that's what it takes, right? That's how you get to that level where you are going to be doing what you're going to be doing. So I think that's been a big one. The second one would probably just be to stay present. It kind of goes back to that time horizon example from earlier, right? It's, staying very grounded in now, in acknowledging my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year goals, but not being attached to those, if that makes sense, where just having that faith, going back to values, right? That if I'm doing everything that I'm possibly doing right now in this moment, I'm sending all my DMs, I'm making all my posts, I'm, doing all my back end stuff and making sure that's buttoned up. And my head hits the pillow at night and, I got my workout in, I got all my stuff in, and I can say that was a damn good day. I feel good. There's always more, but that was a damn good day. If you keep doing that and stacking those up, dude, you'll be fucking unstoppable in a year, 3 years, 5 years. And, it's a double-edged sword though, because obviously staying in that is much easier said than done because you have a bunch of distractions and you're like, oh, I haven't closed a client in the past 2 weeks. What's going on? And it's like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. You can't quit if you don't stop.
I mean, we all know this person. Sahil Bloom said it the other day on one of his reels. It was keep betting on the
Mm,
person that keeps showing up. So even if you show up and it's not a great workout, or even if you show up and you don't send an email to the best of your verbal ability, like do better on the next one. Like the part that matters the most is that you keep showing up, you keep showing face. It's stacking percentages on top of each other.
You look at the very young, successful entrepreneurs, or even just people in their careers in general who, maybe get a promotion earlier than other individuals do. And it's honestly just a matter of how quickly did they do the reps necessary to get to the next step.
mm,
So you look at these guys who maybe are, 25 to 30 years old and they built an amazing company that's helping millions of people. But it's like, how did they get there so quickly when it took others until they were 45 or 50 years old? It's because they did all the reps necessary in a compacted period, and they just grinded down and got all the reps that were needed to get to the next level.
mm.
And so I think that if you can have the ability to be super consistent, do the reps necessary, but also have the mindfulness of being able to, you know, outwork everyone in the present and get it done quicker than you can, then you have a longer back end of your life where you can help more and more people than others who are not doing it. So you're kind of working now for that back end so that you can help the most people necessary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you
But
put that perfectly. Alex Hormozy says that really well too. Like, to paraphrase
yeah.
him, he's like, difference between successful people and non-successful people is that successful people can just make decisions a lot quicker than non-successful ones. It's like, if I'm gonna go try to get a new client, I'm not gonna wait until next week to reach out to a bunch of people. Like, no, I'm gonna do it within the next 5 minutes. And I think you nailed that on the head for sure.
One of the things, that you mentioned, one of your 5 pillars was faith. I'm curious how you see the fit between maybe, like, some religion like Christianity or some faith in that sense, and how that compares to what you're doing in the spiritual, like, breath work. Because I know there's some gray areas between that, there might be, like, some people who controverse, if you get too spiritual, it's not God-based and stuff like that. What is your overall look on, stuff like that?
This is the good stuff. This is the deep. This is this is where the controversy kind of happens, right? I'm not talking bad about any religion, obviously, or anything that anybody believes in, but in my opinion, my personal opinion, because I know people are gonna whatever. In my opinion, most religion boils down to very similar um moral teachings that they're trying to teach their followers, right? Essentially, religion was put into place to make people act better in their lives. And in my opinion, the intersection between spirituality and religion is, I feel like with spirituality, sometimes there's a bit more openness to reception of different ideologies. And that's also why I love philosophy, right? Because I can learn different
Mhm.
things about a lot of different, you know, philosophies and how people think and the way people do what they do. And sometimes with a set religion, there can be a little close off because a lot of the times people think, well, mine is the only one and it's the best one. And that's all that matters. And that's all I'm going to think all the time. And anybody else can go screw. Sometimes, not everybody. And so for me, in the spiritual sense, it's just having a faith in something bigger than yourself, whatever you want to believe in. In my opinion, everything is just energy, right? And everything is made up of this energy that we all come from, we all go to, and that's why like we're all the same. And that's what religion says as well, right? Everybody is just love and just connectivity and just trying to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And as far as combining the types of spiritual work that falls into the breath work, it's just finding that intersect of not needing to be too far out there because then people aren't receptive to that, right? To a lot of like the woo-woo stuff that goes on a lot of the times. And just like the very simple concepts of like just be a good dude, right? Just like work really hard, be a good dude, and eh, just have a sense of faith in something bigger than yourself that, stuff is happening for a reason. Your life is happening how it's supposed to go for one reason or another, whether you know that now or you figure that out 10 years down the line, right? Personally, I went through that with my ACL. I was like, oh my God, I didn't get to play freshman year, right? Because I went into Tufts with a fully torn ACL and I was going through my rehab process. Then we get sent home for COVID and I'm not able to play at all. So now I've had 2 years taken away from me. And some guys stayed at Tufts our sophomore year to do practicing that year, right? And I decided to stay home and do a bunch of work and do all that stuff. And then junior year, I'm kind of falling behind because, for one reason or another, I'm just, not as good as I used to be. And I'm not in the system and in the programs as much. And, looking back in that moment, I'm like, I'd get really mad. I get really down on myself. I'm like, I'm not fucking playing. I'm not doing this. And, I can't stand out and all this stuff. And now I look back and it's like, well, if I never tore my ACL and I never went to Tufts and I never took that year off, I would never be where I am now doing exactly what it is I'm supposed to be doing. Right. So it's like, I feel like there's all these cookie crumbs that you can um, find along your path that just helps ground you, kind of like we talked about before. And I think like that's where that intersect is. And I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but just simplifying it down, right? Just like be a good freaking dude, have fun, help a lot of people, and just work really hard. And I think everything else falls into place.
I relate a lot to that, and, it's something I've mentioned to my wife. So I've gone on a new career recently, and I'm doing commercial real estate investing full time,
Nice.
and it's funny because my degree's in computer science with a minor in math, and now I'm not using it. I probably will use that skill eventually down the road, but I've told my wife before, like, and I can tell this story on a different podcast, but just my whole playing career in lacrosse, I sometimes wish that I, didn't go to college, didn't play college athletics, and I just went straight into what I'm doing now. Cause I'm like, dude, the last 5 years, if I would have just done the actions I'm doing now for the last 5 years, I'd be in a crazy spot and I'd be helping way more people than I am now. But also, like you said, like the reason I resonate with your story so much is because all those things happened in order for me to be ready at 25 years old to be able to go do this right now. Like Riley and I think we had this conversation with our previous guest, Jackson Mitchell, that we weren't ready to go, start a business or do whatever we are at 21, 22 years old. We needed life experiences and all the little pieces that God puts in your life so that you're ready to now go help people and, do your true purpose, or if that's what you call it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That's what helps ground me, right? It's like looking back, because dude, I would go through the same process. I'm like, I wish I didn't waste right 4 years of my life going to school and playing ball and all this stuff because I could have started at 19 my business and I'm like, dude, you would have failed miserably because you are not even a head's hair length away from being able to make the impact that you wanted to make. And it's just, realizing that and knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be at the exact times that you are. So,
I think for people listening that are in a 9 to 5 that maybe they see themselves with an entrepreneur mindset and transitioning into a new opportunity. We talked about this on some of the previous episodes, but to me, it boils down to one word, and that's strategy. I think strategy in layman's terms sounds simple. Everyone's like, okay, you just build a plan and you work on that plan, but there's different iterations of that plan. And sometimes the best action is just to start from the beginning. Okay, if I have a long term goal, like you said, like can't always just focus on the long term goal and thinking ahead. you have to kind of work backwards. So if I have a long-term goal and I create a plan, I'm going to start with step one, but I'm not going to write down the other steps. I'm going to start with step one, see what it takes to, I don't know, if you're starting a business, probably need to build some website to market it, because the first thing to do is get clients in the door. So you got to market yourself. So that's step one. Don't worry about the other steps. Complete that step first and then go to the next one. So how have you done that? What has been some of your strategy to grow your clientele and grow
Yeah,
your
no, that's a
business?
great question. Really just looking at successful people in the space on, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, seeing what they have done. I remember I was 18 or 19, I started listening to Andy Frisella's podcast, right? If you guys have listened to him at all, and he's like really hard nosed, just fucking grind, 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 grind. And that's what I needed at that time. And he has that power list, right? And you write down 5 things the night before that you want to get done the next day. And then that next night, you either check them off if you did them, or you put an X through them if you didn't. And you just keep repeating until you have consistent checks through everything. And that's how you create like steady habits for yourself, right? They say what it takes like 60 days to create a healthy habit for yourself. And so for me, I still do that to this day, right? In my calendar the night before, I make sure I'm time blocking my whole day from when I wake up at 5 to when I go to bed at 10. It's I wake up, I work out, my own breath work, my personal stuff that I like to do, when my clients are, when I'm doing my LinkedIn work, when I'm doing my Instagram content, when I'm having calls like this or networking or just meeting new people, and then when I'm taking the time for myself. And that's been absolutely game changing for me, because if you have no plan, you will not succeed, because then you have nothing to follow, no frameworks to go through to get to where you want to go. And I think that's something big that's helped me, in just, planning everything out to make sure that I can check all the stuff off that I know I need to do. And, simultaneously, there can be some times when I'm like, do I need to be doing this? Is that, should I be doing X, Y, and Z? Because I'm looking in the future, and it's like, no, just keep doing what's working and just keep figuring it out as you go.
You've mentioned a couple of times that you've had, like Devin's inner circle, and you've like in college you had a mentor that helped you out with breath work. How has mentors played a role in your business and also just you gaining skills personally? Do you think that's something that's helped you and excel you forward, or has it been something that, maybe people overhype?
Huge, huge question. Great question. I think it's everything, honestly. I used to be very skeptical because you see every other Instagram post now is another guru or coach or teacher, mentor trying to, teach sales marketing or drop shipping or sales or any of this stuff. And I was always very skeptical about it. And I was like, no, I don't need that help. I'll just figure it out as I go, do all the free content, figure all this stuff out. But it wasn't until I needed to learn how to invest in myself that the growth really started happening. And I think that's something that people overlook big time. I did myself, is that your greatest asset is you, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. You need to invest in you to be able to grow, because if you're staying stagnant, right, but maybe your business is growing or your relationship is growing, or at some point those are going to stall out because you're staying here and everything else is kind of coming here. You need to be growing in tandem with everything that you're doing. And that's something big that I had to learn, is that as you invest in all the stuff that you're doing, you need to continue to invest in yourself, because you're never going to be able to get to the big time things you want to do if you don't learn from the people that are already there. And that's something big that drew me to Devin, right? Is that he's a pioneer in the wellness space. He's been doing this stuff. He's 31 and he's just fucking crushing it. And I wanted to learn the stuff that he does on a daily basis and a weekly basis, and how he's gotten to the space that he's gotten to, so that I can be there and more when I'm at that age, right? And whatever, like I said, not a math guy, econ, 6 or 7 years down the line, right? So it's been huge. It's been everything for me. One thing I would say though is just like, don't jump into just any mastermind or any mentorship group or anything. Make sure it's really something that you are going to use to your benefit. So for me, it was breathwork, because I knew that I wanted to be the best in this space and I want to learn a bunch of different modalities for this. And then with devs, that fell heavily on personal growth and development and kind of learning the business side of the wellness space. So just making sure, like, it aligns with your values again.
You kinda stated it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but at least my look on mentors is always you wanna find the people who have already done it. I think there's that's an easy way to distinguish gurus who are fake and haven't done anything to back it up, and the money they've made is from the guru business and not the actual business. I think if you can look at what they have actually done, uh, then that distinguishes if it's like someone you want to follow and truly invest in them to invest in you. Um, so yeah, I think you're right on with that.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. I think now we can transition. We'd love to actually do one of the
Let's do it.
exercises that you teach,
Heck yeah.
if that works for you. But before we do that, would love to ask you if there was one breathwork technique that you would promote to people to start using today. Obviously, don't want you to give out any
No,
free
that's
free
fine.
juice, but if there's one that people could start using
Yeah,
today, what
absolutely.
would
So
that
I'll,
be?
I'll I'll give two out, right? So one is what I give out to every single person I talk to, whether I work with them or I don't work with them. They reach out to me, whatever. It's just balance breathing, right? It's really simple. It's just inhaling through your nose for 4 to 5 seconds and exhaling through your nose for the same amount of time, right? A lot of the times we wake up, reach for the phone. I do it all the time. Emails, texts, Instagram, and we're frazzled already. Like we are laying in bed, our foot has not even hit the floor yet, and we're already in a heightened state of stress. And what the balance breathing does is that it brings your nervous system back down because your inhales and your exhales are the same length, right? And just a side note, whenever you can extend your exhales for double your inhales, it's an automatic trigger for your heart rate to drop, your blood pressure to drop, cortisol, adrenaline, everything's going to drop. So it's kind of putting you in that middle state of not like complete relaxation, but that middle between the heightened and that relaxed, so that to start your day, you're really focused and you're just locked in and ready to go. So that would be one, just balance breathing. You can come in for 4, out for 4 through your nose, in for 5, out for 5. Just make sure it's the same number. Um, the second one for like you guys right now to try, which would be awesome, is something everybody can do in the morning, right? And this is just called like alkaline breathing or, just sensory breathing. And it's just in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you're going at kind of a pretty quick tempo, right? So it's like you're coming in through your nose and then out through your mouth, and it's a right. And what this is going to do is just going to bring in a lot of oxygen to your body to start the day. You're going to feel really energized, really focused, really ready to go. It's kind of heightening that nervous system up a little bit. And what you're going to do is take anywhere from like 10 to 30 breaths, right? And right as you exhale, you're coming right back into your inhale. So you take like whatever, 10 to 30 of those, and then you go into a breath hold at the end. So it'll be like, let's say you're doing 30, it'll be like 29, 30, and then you're holding after your 30th breath. And you're just holding to a time when you're like still pretty comfortable. You don't feel like you're going to pass out or anything, but just right until you're starting to feel that hunger in your chest to take a breath. Then you're going to take a big breath in through your nose and hold this at the top full for like 8 to 10 seconds, and then exhale out fully through your mouth. And that's one round. You can do one, you can do two, maybe 3 rounds to start your day. And yeah, you'll just feel incredible after that.
Very important question. So being a mastery of breath work, how long can you hold your breath for?
And I've been in some sessions where I've gotten up to like the 4 minutes, into the
Sheesh.
fours, just because you're just so like tapped into to that something, and you're just so relaxed and you're so calm. And part of it is learning how to overcome that stress of when you're holding your breath, your body, all it wants to do is no, 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 right? Just like a cold bath, the ice bath, the sauna, anything. When you're overstressing your body, working out, then you learn how to adapt to it so that when you come back into your normal life, now you have stress, text, emails, whatever, and you're just like, that's no big deal. So that's part of overcoming the breath hold stuff. But yeah, like probably upwards of that. Once I'm warm and stuff.
Yeah, that's impressive. Sounds like you could go surf a Maverick. I mean, not to actually like imply the movie, but that stuff's
That's crazy.
real.
Yeah, no, I'll go try that next week. I'll keep you guys up.
Well, you'll have to send
Yeah.
us video. Let us know how it goes.
I think I'm about a solid maybe 30, 40 seconds right now. Maybe at the best.
Hey, that's still solid. That's still solid. But yeah, I mean, we never are taught how to breathe, and that's funny because you think like, oh, breathing, everybody knows how to breathe, but it's like, most people are very shallow breathers up into your chest, and if you can start to control your breath into your belly and out of your belly, into your nose, out through your nose, as much nasal breathing as you can, you actually can absorb and use 20% more oxygen breathing in and out through your nose than you can in and out through your mouth, which is huge. Like our brain runs on oxygen. So if you can throughout the day use 20% more of that to fuel your creativity, your focus, everything that your brain is responsible for, like you're gonna be 20% more productive, quite literally, you know. So just learning how to breathe more functionally is huge.
I think it's real too. I think people that think, "Oh, like, I don't need to use these practices," I think you're wrong. Like, I've used it in exercise, like, I used Andrew Huberman's, you take 2 deep breaths in through your nose, hold it for a second, and then breathe out while you're running, and it does lower your heart rate, like, I've seen it in real time. And even for sleeping, I'll
Yep.
use mouth tape and, like, just breathe into your nose.
Yep.
It's so much better, like, the amount of REM sleep that I see on my Whoop is a couple
That's
percent better,
insane.
which is great.
Real quick, anybody out there who's gonna watch this, yeah, I don't know this company. I have no affiliation. This is not ad. Get yourself some of these Breathe Right strips, put it over your nose, and then do a little mouth tape. I know you're gonna look crazy and psychotic, and if you have a girlfriend, she might like think you're all weird and shit. But it doesn't matter because your sleep is gonna be absolutely incredible. I guarantee it 100%.
I'm sure it also prevents you from being older and having to snore and, like, being that dad that's just super loud
No
when he
one wants
sleeps,
that.
like, nobody wants
Your
that.
girls don't want you to snore, so do this. You can't snore. You won't.
Like, people who don't know what mouth tape is, can you explain that, either of you? Because I actually don't know what that is. Is it just tape that you look like you're, being abducted and it's duct tape over your mouth while you're sleeping?
Yeah, essentially. I use like the 3M brand. It's, it's medical tape so that it's, you just put like a little strip over your nose and the adhesive doesn't stay on and it's for like sensitive skin and everything. It's basically you just put a piece of tape over your mouth so that you can't breathe in and out through your mouth and you breathe in and out through your nose for 7 to 9 hours, which is huge because you're effectively training yourself to nasal breathe for 8 hours straight, which is just incredible for everything.
At first, I was skeptical, I was like, I might, like, wake up and be, like, gasping for air because I tend to roll over and I'll, like, wake up on the side of my face, and I was afraid I'll, like, plug my airways, but, like, I've done it for a couple weeks now, and it's been great.
That's
It's helped my
awesome. It's
sleep
cool you're able to
tremendously.
see that on the Whoop stuff too.
Yeah, yeah,
Sweet.
it's been good. Well, sweet. Jake, you wanna do a wrap up?
Chase, thanks for coming on. I think that, you provide a lot of value to a lot of people, so I'm excited to watch you grow, and if people have questions about what Chase is doing, what's a good way to find you? Is it your website, your Instagram? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you for this. That was a fun conversation. Instagram at Chase Mangini. If anybody needs anything, always here to help. DM, comment, whatever you guys need. LinkedIn, Chase Mangini. Drop a message to me. And yeah, whether I work with people or not one on one, I'm just always trying to help and provide value because super passionate about this stuff and I've seen the merit in it over the past 5 years of my life. So
Chase has done a good job at posting, content consistently, so even if you wanna know more about Chase, just follow him on Instagram and see some of his content and kinda build that trust as you follow him along. So, thanks for coming on. Have a good rest of your weekend.
yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.